Hi guys, how are you? Thank you very much for coming back. Today I'll be doing the character of Nora Helmer from the play A Doll's House by Henrik Ibsen. Please take the time to listen to this video and to take down as much notes as possible because of the fact that she is a main character, I would want to call a protagonist in this play. And everything that happens around the story, the climax, the turning point in the play, and everything is all relevant to Nora Helmer. So I'm gonna start basically by just talking about simply who she is and what she's done and why she is important. So she is the wife of Torvald Helmer, who is basically the husband, this oppressive husband who doesn't allow her to do anything. She's a mother of 3 children as well, and what happens is that she saves his life by borrowing money to pay for his treatment in Italy. All right. Now the issue is that she is working secretly to repay that loan that she borrowed. The moneylender, a person called Croxted, is blackmailing her as she forged a signature to get the money. Whose signature? Her father's signature, only 3 days after his death, which makes it obvious that the signature is not real, if you dig deeper into the topic. Now, when her husband shows that he is willing to let her bear the consequences alone, she is disillusioned and understands, wow, okay, so you never cared really about me, you only cared about how you look with me in a relationship, or how you look out in society, and how you have me as a trophy. And then she leaves him because she finally understands that. Now the whole play only happens on a matter of 3 days, which is interesting because all this realization of how she was delusional and how she believed in something that wasn't there goes off, and she just starts to understand what really means to, be a protagonist or just a person who is a feminist and wants to find herself in society. See the purposes that Nora is somehow directing or proposing to us, how Henrik Ibsen himself viewed this feminism, women rights thing in the society of Norway at that time. And he couldn't really express his feelings out loud, so he showed us his own view through the main character. And this is very similar in many other plays, like for instance in or novels, like in Persuasion by Jane Austen. Jane Austen portrays to be Anne, and like in a lot of others. Nora is one of the longest and most complex female dramatic roles, and Henrik Ibsen's early audiences found it very difficult to understand who she is because of how she contradicts the expectations of the Norwegian society, alright, in the Victorian era. They expected figures on stage to be consistent, and it was rare for any character to take charge of their own growth. It was even rarer for women to do so. The change from the flighty girl of Act 1 to the sober figure seated at the table in Act 3 seemed incredible. The way she manages to change her personality that fast was applaudable. Throughout the action, however, we see latent strengths in Nora. The energy of the play lies in her discovery of this strength. What strength? The strength of revealing who Torvald is and understanding that she was doing the wrong thing all along and that she shouldn't be with this person who only cares about his appearance with her and thinks or is in love with the fact that he is in love with her, but doesn't really love her, if you know what I'm saying. Ibsen rapidly establishes Nora as someone with a zest for life. Now, she takes pleasure in the Christmas tree. She enjoys macaroons and champagne, and she's physically expressive, and we see her touching and kissing Helmer affectionately. Now, she also plays enthusiastically with her children, crawling under the table to play hide and seek, and keep in mind, given the restrictions of 19th century clothing for women, this suggests that she is quite athletic, if you know what I'm saying. So her instinct is to reach out to people. We see her embrace the nurse, Mrs. Lind, and Dr. Rank, all these three. She also has a natural democracy. Nora's admission that she employed the talk of the servants in her father's house contrasts with Helmer's bluster about Croxted's use of Christian names. Now, all this endears her to the audience. This is what makes her the character that we really like, and this is what really makes her, the protagonist. Now, it also means that she is constantly seen in motion. The physical vitality suggests that she has the energy to sustain the very difficult inner journey she undertakes. That she goes from a completely oppressed character to a character who realizes that she should stand up for herself. Now, Nora as an actor, in terms of Nora as an actor, Nora's tarantella shows the instincts of a natural performer. Dance lets her express what she can't say. It confirms what you have already begun to realize. Nora is becoming aware of performing the role of wife, which society has scripted for her. Remember, Victorian society and the way women have to behave. She is or has to abide by a certain book, and she doesn't really like that. A book of traditions and expectations of society. The Nora Perkley acting out the role of Skylark or Squirrel in Act 1 may enjoy the game. She may enjoy the power she has to wheedle money from Helmer, and I quote, by playing with his coat buttons. She, I wouldn't say manipulates, but she plays around him to get what she wants. So she's very some sort of manipulative. Nevertheless, she knows that this kind of power will be gone when she is no longer pretty. And she says that. She says, when I'm no longer pretty, in Act 1. At some point, she may feel resentment to the tricks. She performs in order to ask Helmer for anything. After all, her problems are the result of his stubborn refusal to look after his health. Not looking after his health made her look after it, which made her borrow money by forging a signature. So if he looked after himself in the first place, none of this would have happened. Another thing, the fact that Ibsen's first jottings towards the play indicate that he was interested in the idea of two kinds of conscience, one for men and one quite different for women, conveys the kind of character this author was. Helmer is governed by the rules of society, and Nora habitually follows her heart. You could argue that at the beginning of the play, neither of them has a genuine conscience at all. They are not rational and ethical human beings, but creatures of convention. This is merely higher level English leaving cert what I just said at the moment. Ibsen gives us the details we need to understand Nora's background. He shows that some of her less attractive qualities are products of her upbringing and its limitations. For instance, her naivety, in assuming that the law will understand her motivation of, forging a signature, that they will get it, that she was just trying to, save her husband from dying, perhaps comes from her father, who was capable of dubious behavior. Her snobbish attitude to Krogstad reflects Helmer's own. Like, she inherits qualities from the men around her, father and her husband. Her smug refusal to consider the problems of strangers in Act 1, for instance, stems from an ignorance of the world which Helmer is only too keen to encourage, pushing away worldly friends like Dr. Rank by the end of the play. Nora, for instance, by the end of the play, is actively interested in strangers and intends to do something about her ignorance, which is very much opposing or opposite to the belief that her husband has. She is not only aware that she knows nothing beyond the playroom, she is well aware that her father and husband have kept her there, which is very much contrasting and opposing to the women that were in that era, in the Norwegian era at that time. The expectation that they had to just listen to a parental figure, or when you get married you listen to a husband, which is, by the way, still relevant in many of the societies today. She didn't do that. She understood that it's just, okay, they are the reason that I am this way, and the fact that I have to listen, and the fact that I don't know anything about the outer world, she's not really blindly believing that. She knows the reasons behind that, and she knows that it's her father who had that reason, who made her this way, and then her husband who continued to preserve her from encountering in the society. Now, By the end of the play, Nora is aware that her personality has been largely put together by men, the two men who love her, and behind them a whole spectrum of masculine authority, from the law to the church. They have treated her like an object to be played with or looked at or sold. Alright? Now, what else I could say? I could say that in order to become a subject rather than an object, because she doesn't no longer want to be played around by her husband or long gone father before, she has to shape a new self. Her plans have the same clear sightedness as her farewell to Dr. Rank. She replaces her fantasies of herself as a noble suicide and Helmer as the heroic miracle worker with modest expectations. Her decision to stay the night with Mrs. Lind implies that she does not expect her life to be better than that of her old school friends. So basically she understands money isn't everything, and what's gonna happen to me later doesn't really determine what I have now. So she intends to work, and this is realistic as she is an experienced copyist and knows exactly what a woman can earn. So she isn't really that typical housewife of the Norwegian society in the Victorian era. Nora is also profoundly aware of the emotional costs of what she is doing. The break with her children has already begun. Although she is no longer haunted by the idea that is planted by Helmer that they might turn out to be like her and how she will corrupt them because she is not a suitable or fit mother, she does feel that she cannot educate them properly though. So she kind of agrees with them because in terms of education. She also considers that neither she nor Helmer feels real love for the other. Her wry response to his suggestion that they could live as brother and sister, as she says, "You know quite well that wouldn't last," and I quote, hints that she still desires him. Now, for the first time, however, she talks about duty rather than about love. She has become a person with a considered moral code, a conscience, rather than simply loving instincts. Now, Helmer, meanwhile, can only repeat the same old patronizing cliches. Ibsen seems to be suggesting that if the consciousness of the sexes are different, the female conscience is more developed. This is just what the author thinks, and it's strictly higher level for the sake of your own knowledge about the play. You don't have to invoke this if you feel uncomfortable with it or if you don't get it. She might also be regarded as a light giver in some certain sense, and at the beginning this is seen how Nora frequently gravitates to the warmth and safety of the stove. Now, when faced by Dr. Rank's declaration of love and the temptation to exploit it for money, how she's very much obsessed about paying back the loan that she fraudulently borrowed, and she has to get that money in any way possible by getting money from Torvald, by somehow being his squirrel on Skylark and just getting the money, or by trying to get this money from Torvald, from Rank, by just flirting around with him. She demands light when she understands that Rank will go for the opportunity of sleeping with her or manipulating her at the beginning of the play. And in the last act, offering kindness to a dying man, she is herself a giver of light. Ibsen once remarked to a woman who likened herself to Nora because she had run away with her lover, "My Nora went alone." It is Nora's unflinching solitude at the end of the play that marks her with all her faults as a heroine, unique in her century. Now, this is very important to understand. Now, I want to give you maybe a few small side notes. And when Ibsen, for example, when Ibsen began to insist on his original ending, some theaters chose to create their own. And this is something that's very important about the society itself. If you're doing cultural context, for instance, in the comparative or social setting, in ordinary level, you might want to invoke this if the question has anything to do with it. In one version in Berlin, Helmer arrives at the house of Krogstad and Mrs. Lind to find Nora, and she whispers, "Have you then truly forgiven me?" And he produces a large bag of macaroons, and she cries, "The miracle of miracles." This is one version of the play and how it was shown in one of the versions played in Berlin. Now, Another key context is that A Doll's House has often been staged with a clear political intent, and such productions center on the character of Nora. Now, in the 1920s, A Doll's House was banned in China, for instance. Such as the right not to have their feet bound when young, and the name of Nora was literally changed in a 1935 production. They changed it to, doesn't really say here in my notes, but anyway, she wasn't really allowed to use that name for I know whatever reason it is. A key interpretation of Nora, I can also say that Ibsen's photographer, or Ibsen's biographer, the person who wrote his biography, life story, Robert Ferguson, considers the ending to be flawed. And he says, dramatically it is necessary, psychologically it is not. Nora has already proved herself the stronger. Alright, great. I don't know if that helps you at any means or something. It didn't really help me in terms of the comparative if I'm thinking about it, but I think that this is a lot of the information that happens, and all of it actually I have delivered to you and explained to you in detail. Guys, if you have any questions about Nora Helmer, drop them down below. Yeah, I guess this is it. Thank you very much. See you next time.